Hey everyone, it's Sideralis Music again, and we're back with yet another build. Woo! So today we're actually going to be going over the Archer build, which is just range damage, duh. And before we get started, in the chest full of all the items that you'll want to eventually build into, I'm going to be going over the stats as per normal. Last build guide video was on the Warrior, so make sure you check that out. That'll be in the description below. The link to that video will be there. But today we are going over Archer. And I'm pretty excited because Archer definitely got quite the buff. There's a lot of things that really help out Archer right now. But we're going to get into our stats first. And surprise, surprise, it's just luckiness and dexterity because that's really all you need as an archer. So just like the last video, you're going to get 50 luckiness. And then, of course, there's a cap on luckiness. You know, that crit chance that you get from luckiness, which it counts for all the builds. So you get all the crit chance from that, which includes ranged. But as you level up in luckiness, you're going to get less and less crit chance per point. So the max that you're going to be getting from leveling specifically is going to be 63.4%. Now, the cool thing, though, about dexterity is that it adds a lot more than it used to now. It used to really only be pretty good for range damage, but now it's, 0.25 range damage. That has not changed. However, you get that 5% range crit damage now, so it acts like, strength, giving, that melee crit damage and attack damage. You actually have range damage and crit damage now, which is really nice. But you also get plus 1% speed. And what speed is that? Well, that is movement speed. And you can see right here that my movement speed is actually 0.15. I can move 3 blocks per second. That is actually faster than normal. That's a lot faster than normal. The normal movement speed is 0.1 instead of 0.15. So this is my natural movement speed without any buffs. Okay? That's actually pretty cool, and that's actually going to help you a lot as an archer because you have to do this thing called kiting, which you kind of back up while firing your bow and stuff to distance yourselves from mobs and bosses. Because you are a ranged character, you fight from a ranged. You generally do not fight close up. So movement speed can help a lot with that. And I mean, you can add the roll, which looks like a dash, but I mean, if we do our F5 here, you can see that we roll. So you can add your roll into that to move even faster, and there are enchants to help with that, but that's pretty cool. But another big thing, of course, is that it helps with attack speed. And then one thing I forgot to mention last video is that strength actually has breaking speed. So I think that's pretty cool. You can actually improve your mining speed just a little bit with strength. But yeah, so 50 luckiness, and assuming you're leveling to level 100, you're going to get 50 dexterity. Now moving on to what you're going to build. So this might seem a little counterintuitive at first, but this is because of the specific weapon you're going to build. And when deciding to go the archer build, I would probably not start with the archer build. I would actually transition into the archer build because you're going to need a powerful enough build to beat Archmagus, because Archmagus drops something called the Hellstorm Spellbow. And we're actually going to go over this first. The Hailstorm Spellbow gives you plus 8 Arcane Spell Power, plus 8 Frost Spell Power, and plus 8 Fire Spell Power. And if you hold it in the offhand, it gives you plus 6 range damage. Now, the big thing about this is that with this bow, it scales off of both frost damage and physical ranged damage. Now, I did quite a bit of testing. I had to do hybrid testing. I had to do like stats testing as far as like which stat was better or is it better to go hybrid, and then I had to test the difference between like intelligence and frost, and I did decide that going dex overall was better just because you get both the range crit damage and you get flat range damage out of that as opposed to percentage, which is actually a good thing because magic can be quite powerful. But the armor you're going to wear is actually the Rune Frost armor. And the reason for that is because by itself, it's not as powerful as the Archer's armor. But with the spell enchants that you add to it, it actually goes beyond Archer's armor. So you end up kind of getting the best of both worlds by getting the most out of dexterity because you get the most physical range damage here, but you get more power in frost, and the frost ends up beating out Archer's armor because of the enchants here, mainly Soul Frost. So that's kind of the big thing about Hailstorm Bow is that it scales off of that. Yep. So it has an ability that it comes with, which is called Hailstorm, and you channel continuously to shoot arrows. Arrows deal base physical projectile damage equal to your frost power. The bow can also contain 2 additional effects via the spellbinding table. So this bow is actually going to go into the spellbinding table itself as opposed to making like a Wartome or a spellbook, and it requires a frost rune instead of arrows to fire. However, you can actually do an enchant called Spell Infinity, which is basically like infinity for bows, but it's going to be for this, and that'll be ideal to use on this. Now, I have 2 spells on this. There are 3 different spells that you can do. I think that these 2 are actually the best overall spells just for that single target, and you'll have quite a bit of AoE as well. So there's Chain. Your arrows can chain to nearby enemies twice, and when that happens, it can actually possibly hit the first enemy twice. And I think even if you're only fighting one enemy, you can actually hit that enemy twice. I might be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. I think it is kind of hard to tell when you're shooting, but I do think you can actually hit enemies twice, even if there's only one enemy there. But either way, I do like Chain quite a lot, just because I think it can provide ideally the most DPS. Then you have the Primordial Burst, which is a 33% chance on arrow to hit, but it can trigger an elemental nova, and each element has a 2-second cooldown. So to basically show you how this looks, I'm going to go to my target dummy here. And this is basically how it looks. And you can, again, you just channel like this, just hold down right click, and yeah, you just continuously shoot arrows, and it's pretty cool. And of course, I don't really have any gear on. I only have stats, so my DPS isn't going to be that high. However, I have gotten up to, and with Archer Origin specifically, I've gotten up to like 7k DPS with the final build. And that is actually a certified Obsidian Buster, meaning that it can deal all 53,000 HP of its health before it enters its first phase. So you can basically DPS race it. You can kill it before it enters its first phase. So this is a pretty powerful build. But of course you need to fight Archmagus first, and you need to have a powerful enough build to beat Archmagus. And you can see one of the builds in the warrior build video. In a future video, I think the best build to transition from will probably be these rogue builds here. But yeah, more on that like quite a bit later. So let's go on to the armor set. You're going to do the Rune Frost armor set. Gives you 25% frost spell power per piece, 100% frost spell power, so that scales pretty well with this. Again, it doesn't scale quite as well as Archer's armor, but the enchants are what push it over that. Speaking of the enchants, we're going to have Mending, of course. We all know what Mending does, and that's going to be in first priority. You're going to have Life Mending, which is pretty good. I mean, you can, if you're going to do Life Mending, I would probably recommend like a Lifesteal Relic, or maybe have just like a Lifesteal Relic on hand, just to heal your armor on a target dummy afterwards, or something like that. But it's optional. However, you might as well do it because you are going to need Life Mending for the spell bow, and I'll go over that in just a minute after all the armor. There's the Bag of Souls 3, which increases the amount of experience, and yes, that does stack, so make sure to put it on all of your armor, and that's really important when leveling up, because again, when leveling up, when getting around level 70, it gets very hard to level up. And you're probably going to want to hit at least level 100, at least that's what I do. And there's a maximum of level 200 for people who really, really want to grind. So, Bag of Souls, very useful. Then Protection is a standard enchant, really good. I'm going to clear the weather again, because I'm in a Twilight Meadow and it always storms. But yeah, Protection, really good. Probably better than, you know, all the other protections. I mean, just like vanilla, you want protection on all your armor. Books can stack up to protection 5. Mushroom Mines is a structure that can have protection 8. Coliseum is a structure that can have protection 10. And you can get up to a max of protection 40 if you get 4 protection 10s. And the cap is raised all the way to 65. You can't hit that in this mod pack, but you can hit protection 40 now if you really want to grind that much. So, on to the big thing that kind of makes this build, you know, one of the things that makes this build special is that Soul Frost. That's an enchant that increases soul and frost spell damage you deal. Now, soul damage is not implemented yet, and soul damage, even when it is implemented, it won't have anything to do with the spell bow. So you're really getting Soul Frost just for the frost spell damage that you deal. And it does stack, and you can combine books up to 6. That's really good because I think being able to overlevel this enchant is really the big thing that helps push this past the Archer's armor, and to give you that option, the best option to have. And I'm kind of glad because the Archer's armor has been a staple for a while, and I think it's about time for a change, and I think it's a very welcome change, especially since the rune armors haven't really seen a whole lot of use in-game builds yet. So I'm happy we can actually have a rune armor in as something for an in-game build, and in something as cool as Archer, because Archer is actually cool now. Like cooler than it's ever been. Then, of course, Amplify Spell, that increases the critical strikes that's done with spells. You're not going to be doing any healing with any heal spells because you don't have heal spells. But the critical strikes done with spells, so I don't know if Chain counts as that, but I know Primordial Burst counts as that, and those Elemental Novas can actually hit for quite a lot when they trigger, so Amplify Spell is something good to have, and it does stack, so make sure you get that and you stack it on all 4 pieces of your armor. This is another important one. Spell Volatility increases the chance of critical strikes done with spells. Now, I believe you're going to have around, I don't know, with Spell Volatility 5, you're probably going to have around like 70-something as opposed to 63.4% crit chance because this does stack. So that's, again, really useful for Primordial Burst. Berserker's Fury 3, that's kind of optional. I mean, if you stay well out of range of mobs, you're not really going to need to worry about it. You can't really take advantage of the strength effect because you're dealing range damage. You're not really in melee dealing melee damage. And you could probably take advantage of the speed 3, but I mean, you're pretty fast already, and this is me not sprinting. This is me sprinting. I mean, Berserker's Fury 3 is not quite as useful. But if you are going to get it, again, it only goes on the chest. It doesn't go on anything else, so it doesn't stack. And if you decide you want to remove it later, you can remove it with a prismatic cobweb, which is pretty easy to make. Unbreaking is something that you might actually want to get for the runic armors, because I don't think they have that much durability. They definitely have more than something like robes, but it's still kind of a nice enchant to have. Deflect helps a lot with arrows and other projectiles. You can choose to have it, you can choose not to have it. I do find that 50 luckiness tends to do the job quite well, but deflect is always nice, especially for something like phantom raiders that can hit kind of hard with arrows. Deflect can be nice to have, but that's only if you want to get it like early on, if you just happen to find it. And it only goes on one armor piece, but it can go on any armor piece. It doesn't just have to go on the chest, but it does not stack. So make sure you put it only on one armor piece. Then there's Fire Focus. It's not going to deal that much damage. You don't have fire aspect, but there is... I guess you do a little bit of fire damage with Primordial Burst. I don't think you're going to be putting flame on this bow because you don't shoot normal arrows, so you're not really going to be shooting flaming arrows. You might be able to use some of the MC Dungeons artifacts. So like, let's see, like a Flaming Quiver. You might be able to make this work with Flaming Quiver. I'm not really sure. But typically stuff that affects arrows does not affect the Hailstorm Spellbow because you're not really using arrows. So, yeah. Fire Focus, again, optional, and it works exactly like Deflect. Can go on any armor piece, but you're not going to be stacking it. It only goes on once because it does not stack. So you'd be wasting your experience if you tried to stack it. Thorns, again, optional. If you do get it, stack it. Same with Burning, optional, which is the fiery version of Thorns. If you do get it, stack it. I don't know how much use you're going to see out of that because, again, you're an archer. You're going to be at ranged. You're probably not going to be hitting mobs that much. There are some mobs that are completely immune to projectiles and even reflect projectiles back. There's like a boss, I think, that does it. You don't really need to fight that boss if you don't want to, but if you do fight that boss, then maybe it might be useful to have some of the up-close enchants. And I'll say maybe in a future update, we could see archers using daggers for their melee option for a, I'll just say for reasons. Because there's some stuff that's being tested right now. So, you are going to want to fight Archmagus in order to get the Hailstorm Spellbow. So, what you're going to want, you probably will want magic protection for that fight, unless you're really, really strong. And you're probably going to need to deal magic damage of some sort, but you might be able to do it just with Smite from the Warrior build as well. And the way you get Hexblade invaders to invade you is you actually have to cast a bunch of spells. So, yeah, try making a spell book and just casting a bunch of spells because pretty much any weapon can actually cast spells from a spell book, which means that you can put the enchant spell Infinity on any weapon. So you can just kind of sit there casting spells at the target dummy until Hexblades invade you. And then they will drop something called a Hexblade, I believe. Yeah, a Magister's Hexblade. Uh, which oh, no, I think they dropped the offering to the Hexblade. Yeah, I think they dropped the offering to the Hexblade. So what you have to do with this is you have to put it in a backpack because you're gonna want the invaders to invade you again when you have this, because you need this to right click the portal that they come through in order to get to the Glass Ocean, and then you use one of the effigies that the Hexblades also drop to summon Archmagus there. And then from there, you can create a waste. You can, have a waste stone with you, place it inside the Glass Ocean, and then you'll be able to teleport back and forth from the Glass Ocean to the overworld. But that first step in getting there is a little bit tricky. But in a future update, you won't have to put that Hexblade, that offering to the Hexblade, into your backpack. Because and the reason you have to put it into your backpack is because if it's in your inventory, Hexblade invaders just like won't spawn. But the thing is, you need it in order to right click the portal. So the trick is to put it in your backpack or to put it in a chest, but it's better to put it in your backpack. So we move on to the XP gain setup. We have a Lapis backpack, which you should probably always wear. It's a chance to multiply the amount of experience. And of course, all the enchants and gear and stuff like that can stack. There's the Soul Dancer hood, or the Soul Dancer robe set, which you have the Soul Dancer experience, which I think is 100% experience gain when you have this full set. Again, this is optional because the set is kind of expensive. It's a netherite ingot. I usually go without making this set, but I have made this set before, and it is pretty nice. Soul Dancer's Grace is kind of a bonus, another bonus for this set. It gives you 30% chance to evade an attack completely. That's any attack, so it's true evasion, and that's pretty nice. But again, it's a 30% chance. But still, better than nothing, and it's nice that these robes have this. Again, I would use at least these 4 enchants. You can't use these enchants, sadly, the magic enchants. So you're probably just going to be using like a standard warrior build when doing this. And which Greater Orb of Regrets are good for. They reset your skill points, which you can find plenty of. And yeah, pretty good set to have. You're going to have separate, weapons for gaining XP or just one weapon for gaining XP. And the benefit of this is that, you don't have to be like a warrior and have one weapon set up and another weapon set up. You can just have your melee weapon set up have this, because your main damage weapon is your Hailstorm spellbow anyway. So, Soul Devourer, really good, multiplies XP gain, so have that on your weapon. Knowledge of Ages, loot's going to be directly converted to experience, so you won't be getting loot, but you'll be getting a lot more experience based off the amount of loot that an opponent can drop. Speaking of the amount of loot, you can stack that with looting, which makes mobs drop more loot. And then, of course, Scavenger has a chance that mobs can re-roll their loot tables twice. So it all stacks together. It's pretty good XP gain if you want to use that. And now, I've already explained the Hailstorm Spellbow, so we're going to explain the enchants that go on the Hailstorm Spellbow. Now, if you really want to, I guess you could put Mending on the Spellbow. Mending doesn't work with Spell Infinity, but you can create a wizard villager that trades you runes, and runes can be pretty cheap to get, so you could get a bunch of frost runes and always have that on you. Although you would need as many frost runes as you would typically need arrows, which of course is a lot. In vanilla Minecraft, if I'm messing around with a bow a lot, I usually have like 5 stacks of arrows. So that is a lot of runes, but I think the runes themselves are easy to craft, thankfully. Let's see. you would just have to, yeah, cobblestone and a snowball. So you really just need a good shovel, and you would need a waystone that goes to a, I don't know, like a mountain or something like Howling Peaks, or some sort of snow biome, and then cobblestone, obviously extremely easy to get. Ice is also pretty easy to get too. You could actually go to like a frozen ocean or Ice Peaks biome, which you can make a Nature's Compass to get to, and you could have a waystone that goes there, and you could be set for quite a while. I think you have to have Silk Touch for this though. But like I said, you can also make a wizard villager with a rune crafting altar, and 2 emeralds get you 8 frost runes. So yeah, if you do not want to go the life mending spell infinity route, you can actually go the mending route and do uh, frost runes. Just a whole ton of frost runes. But mending and spell infinity aren't compatible, so you would have to do life mending and spell infinity if you're going to go that route. Which spell infinity is spells are free to cast. You're not casting spells, but you are still using runes, so you would need spell infinity, and you would have no choice but to use life mending to heal your bow. But thankfully, weapons are typically pretty easy to heal, so you probably won't need a lifesteal relic, but you might want to have one like just on you, and equip it to heal your bow if needed. Power does work on this bow. I can say that stuff like Overcharge does not work on this bow. Overcharge is another enchant. It doesn't work on this bow. There's a lot of enchants that don't work on the bow, and it's mainly enchants that affect arrows or make arrows do special things. This bow doesn't really shoot arrows, so those enchants do not work. But generic damage enchants do work, so that's good. And then another thing that works on this bow that's kind of unique for this bow is spell power, because it scales with frost power. And spell power will also affect primordial burst. So that's pretty nice. So the two, you really have no choice between 2 big damage enchants, which is Void Shot and Enigma Resonator 4. Void Shot 4 is going to be, let's see. Yeah, I think it's 6 times damage is Void Shot 4. And either that or it's 8 times. I think it's 6 times. I think it's like I don't know, a 15% chance or something like that. So it's kind of on the lower side. But it can be a lot of damage. But like I said before in my last video, Enigma Resonator at 500 XP levels will pretty much be dealing more damage, like about 7 out of 10 times. In fact, it might even be a little bit more with the Hellstorm Spellbow. I tend to really favor Enigma Resonator for this build a whole lot. And then, of course, there's a Smite. If you're going to be going up against Archmagus, there might be a chance where you use your like 2-handed weapon, or your dual-wielded one-handed weapons with Smite on them to actually shred his shield, and then you go ham with whatever you have on Archmagus. So that's the thing. You can have Wartomes with Hellstorm Spellbow, and they kind of work, I think, just like the other Wartomes. So you can actually... Oh, I guess you can't. Yeah. Let's see. Game mode. Survival? Oh, yeah. So you can really only use the passive effects, I guess, from the Wartomes, if I remember right. And we'll go into those right now. Oh, and also one thing you might notice is that I have 8 hearts above my other row of hearts. That's because the Rune Frost, I was wearing the Rune Frost armor earlier, and when you're wearing all of it, it actually, it doesn't give you much armor, as you can see, but it does give you Absorption, and you get you get absorption per piece that you have, so you get up to absorption 4 with that, and then it has a cooldown, when, but it will eventually replenish your hearts when these second row of hearts run out. So that is actually something that is pretty cool that this armor provides. That was the thing that I forgot about this armor. So that actually really helps the archer build. So you probably won't be tactical diving unless you decide to use it with melee. But the courage, your passive, you gain up to resistance 3, 1 level every 4 seconds. Getting hit makes you lose a level of resistance. However, you have a lot of speed already, and you're a bow user. You're an archer. So you probably shouldn't be getting hit a whole lot, which means that you're going to have resistance 3 quite a bit. So Acrobat's Wartome is actually pretty good to use. There's the Duelist Wartome, which also kind of gives you the same thing, but in case you want this ability right here, you can have the Duelist Wartome. This might be good if, I don't know, if your melee option is something like the Frost Spellblades. I can see the Frost Spellblades being a melee option just because you do have Frost Spell power here. So you will have Frost Spell power with Soul Frost and with Frost Spellblades themselves. So I could see you being some sort of like spell sword in which you kind of cast spells and have infusion buffs and stuff like that. And then you just like transition into full archer at some point. So I could see the Duelist Wartome being used, but I mean, either one of these for the courage buff is really the main reason I would use it. There's also the endurance buff. Upon being hit, you gain a level of regen. So in case you actually do get hit a lot, you can gain regeneration, and you gain regeneration up to 4, which is pretty nice, especially with the absorption that you already have. And then there's the Warrior Wartome, which you can just switch to a melee weapon, and you can use Whirlwind for mobility. I think that's really nice. And then there's Determination, which is basically like a Totem of Undying, and if you use it as a passive, which you could probably do that pretty well with Archer, and if you use it as a passive, pops like the Totem of Undying, you end up getting like Haste 3, Strength 3, and Regeneration 3, I believe. And the cooldown actually becomes like 1 minute or something like that. You take heavy damage after 8 seconds, but I think that damage could actually go to your absorption, depending upon if the armor brings your absorption back or not during that amount of time, which it probably should. I believe it would. So yeah, Determination can actually be very good for an archer build specifically. So moving on to relics. Now this one's actually a pretty insane relic. We mainly want to go after percent dexterity, and then we need a range crit chance one. So this one is really insane because it gives you a high level of dexterity, because the max is like 50%, so 45 is actually really good. But it's also giving you 120% ranged crit damage. The highest is like 190, which I haven't seen yet. The highest I've seen, I believe, is 180, and usually the high roll that I see is 170, and that's out of the high rolls, which I also rarely see. So I think 120 is pretty nice. That's just a really nice bonus to have on your percent dexterity relic. And the reason, of course, you do percent dexterity is because you're getting both a lot of range damage and quite a bit of crit damage out of dexterity. So getting the best of both worlds there. This is 24% range crit chance, which is really good because I believe the max is 30. However, this is also giving me 130% spell critical damage, so I mean, I'll take it for Primordial Burst. That's also another really good relic, and giving you plus in luckiness actually ain't bad either. There's also 37% dexterity here, which is pretty nice. I usually try to go after like 30 or greater on the relics when stacking a single stat like dexterity, strength, stuff like that. This one also gives me +2 armor. I guess it's good bonus. 34% arcane spell power to fuel primordial burst is also kind of nice. And then again, another dexterity relic and another dexterity relic. So let's wear all these relics and see where my dexterity is at. And then I'm also going to wield the bow. And I'm not going to wield the armor, but we'll see. Whoa. And look at my speed. Look at that speed. Because you got to remember, we're fueling dex, which means I also get more speed. I'm not sprinting, by the way. This is me not sprinting. Now I'm sprinting. So that's kind of absurd. And I mean, yeah, it's 193. And if we look at my combat stats, my range damage is almost 50. And my crit damage is pretty much at the... that's where it was before the crit damage nerf on relics. Like, I would actually usually sit right around here when building nothing but crit. Before the crit damage nerf on relics. So that's pretty nice. My crit chance is 72.18, and of course that's because I have my crit. Where's my crit chance relic? Which one is it? I don't remember. Oh yeah, it's this one. So that's pretty nice. And my spell crit damage is sitting at a 280 with my crit chance at 55. That's also pretty nice. Spell volatility would actually push that. Actually, it probably would push that around 63.4% or whatever it is. It pushes it to. That's pretty good. It looks like evasion, I guess, has gotten nerfed, which is a good thing because we want archers to be able to actually hit opponents in PvP. So deflect might actually be a better option to have now. But yeah, with these total relics, I mean, 0.293 movement speed, 193 dexterity, 63 luckiness, and you have these stats right here, which is pretty crazy. And I mean, if we look at what everything is without armor, without enchants, just with what I have on. Oh, I'm missing a frost rune. I guess I need to go to creative. I mean, look. It's kind of crazy that I can hit this without enchants and without my armor buff, right? Like, that's kind of a little nutty, So, yeah, this is why relics are actually, like, super, super important. Because not everyone understands how important it is to actually grind for relics. And I like grinding for relics into mine cells because you basically have infinite mobs to grind. And because they just, they keep spawning. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind, is that your relics are going to be a really powerful source of power. So smithing table is here because, again, you can affix relics to armor. You can only do it to crafted armor, so make sure you craft at least the chest piece and the helmet, and you can add relics to it. And it can only be done once. It cannot be undone, and it cannot be overwritten by another relic. So be very, very careful. As always, you can enchant the relics themselves with whatever you want, and then you can lose the enchants, but they're easy to gain back, especially with like villagers and stuff like that. You just don't want to lose the relic. So, moving on to backpacks. You can read here why they're good, but immunity to fall damage and fireballs sent by blaze. Really nice to have, especially as an archer character, because I'm shooting from a distance anyway. So it's like I don't have a shield, but I don't need one because I'm immune. Yay! Magma Cube. Immunity to fire damage, which is pretty interesting, especially since I have a lot of fire resist already. I believe as a person with Dex. yeah, as a person with Dex, you get like fire damage resistance. So, and I'm not really sure what 3 point. Oh, yeah, I already have 39.5% fire resistant damage. So, might as well make it immune, especially in the Nether. This one provides night vision. You can find it in mine shafts. Um, you can also almost always find it in the mushroom mine structure, which is an overworld structure, but it it still counts as a place where you can find this. And then Squid Driverless Backpack um, is water breathing and night vision. So infinite swimming, really nice. We love infinite swimming. Um, and yeah, so now we move on to something that can give us buffs. We can have a Charm of Absorption 4, which stacks with our Absorption. And it's really kind of weird how it does stack. Um, oh, creative. Thanks. Oh, this guy spawned. Okay. Anyway, my skeletons are invisible for some reason. Don't know why. I think that was an old bug, but that just kind of carried over. But anyway, it stacks, but the Charm of Absorption 4, I do recommend regardless. It stacks kind of weirdly though, because it like, I think your armor, oh yeah, that's right, your armor won't refresh its absorption, because this is refreshing its absorption faster, which your armor is thinking that you already have absorption, so we're not going to give you absorption. So if you want if you want both rows of hearts again, you would actually have to take this off, let your armor refresh your absorption, and then put this back on again. So it stacks kind of weirdly, but I mean, you can use it if you want. You could also use a Charm of Resistance 2. You could use, I guess, Haste. You could use Regeneration. There's a lot of good pushing charms out there, so pick which one you want to use. There is the Deathcap Mushroom and the Fist of Fury, which both increase attack speed. It might be useful for when you're doing like melee stuff, maybe gaining XP. And the reason why you need melee weapon to gain XP, by the way, is because you can't really put any of the XP gaining chance on bows. So you're not really going to be using your bow to gain XP. It's mainly going to be a different setup with these enchants here. And Fist of Fury, you can read all about Archon in the Grimoire, which you get from the tutorial quests. So make sure you do that. But costs 30 mana, gives you the Rage buff, and that's just a lot of attack speed. So I guess that can help you with your melee setup, but it's not quite as important. All of these can be enchanted with Unbreaking, Life Mending, and Mending because they have durability. This one doesn't use durability when you use the ability, but it uses durability if you decide to like actually punch with it, because it does have +5 attack damage, so you can. So yeah, these can be good to get. And then of course there's the Hardening Catalyst, which makes anything with durability unbreakable, which is really nice. But it's pretty expensive, and it costs Shulker Shells, so you need to unlock the end. It costs 2 Netherite Ingots, so yeah. But I don't know, it's worth it in the end. Broken Watch, it makes effects last longer. That's any effects, even the benefits you get from tomes and stuff like that. So read the Almanac from Things. It's called the Things Almanac. To learn how to craft this, because it has a unique crafting recipe that REI is just not going to show. There's the Icarus Wings, which there's a lot of different types. I'll show you real quick. I've shown these off here, but there's a lot of different types to choose from. And the cool thing about the Icarus Wings with this armor is that this armor is not quite enough armor to slow you down, so you can actually take off. Let me just make it daytime real quick and clear the weather so that it's kind of safe. And I'll just wear the armor as a demonstration to show how you can do this and why it's important. Oh, dang it, I didn't go to survival mode. There we go. So I can just fly. I don't need a boost. All I'm doing is pressing Control and W. And I can dive, of course, and go back up. But when I go up, see, I'm just pressing W right now. Now, it uses quite a bit of hunger, but that's okay. I mean, hunger is pretty easy to restore, at least in my opinion it is. So, oh, nice, skeleton horse. But yeah, this armor is not enough armor to weigh you down. So that means that you'll have powered flight with this armor, which is nice to have. You don't need any boosts like fireworks or anything with the wings. So next up is the agglomeration, which you can combine 2 trinkets together that share the same slot. You cannot combine 2 like Relic X trinkets together. That's just like way too absurd. It's too OP. And it wouldn't consider them the same thing anyway, which I think that's why you can't do it. But you can combine, like, you know, say like a necklace relic with like another necklace from a different mod, which there are plenty of trinkets to search and use in this mod pack. If you just search trinket, you can see all the different stuff that you can use that counts as a trinket, especially all the stuff from things. There's like a mossy necklace that gives you regen 2 when you're in light, so maybe you can combine that with like your necklace and you can have regen 2 when you're near light or when it's daytime. So that's pretty nice. You can also use this to combine 2 wings together, which is what I did with the light wings and Flanders wings. Next up is the Riot Gauntlet, which isn't crazy important, but it might be nice, especially if you're playing Archer, because Archer currently deals half attack damage. But with this, it grants permanent strength, and that strength is actually strength 4. This is expensive to make, but it's worth it to make, maybe, if you're doing like a melee setup. And then, of course, there's the monocle, and it grants permanent night vision. And I'm wearing that right now. So I think that's pretty much all for Archer. Next up, we're actually going to be going over magic builds. We're going to go over casting first, and these are specifically the casters. And this is kind of going to work as an introduction to magic and how it works. And then we'll get into some of the more powerful magic builds that you would probably want to do, and you could definitely transition into Archer from if you want to. And yeah, so really hope you like this video. If you did like it, you can leave a comment down below. I answer questions all the time. I've been answering questions on even an outdated video as well, on updated content. So you can also subscribe if you want to do that, or if you didn't like it, you can dislike it or whatever. I don't really care. I make these videos because I like to make them, and I like modded Minecraft, specifically this mod pack in particular. So the link in the description for this mod pack will it'll be in the description below. So that's all for now. See y'all later.